Hey, good morning, everybody. 6:30 in the morning. We're stamping right over the house today into a back patio. 1,000 square foot stamp back patio. Everything should go really well. He's got a really big boom on that truck, so we got it right down under the patio. Let's go take a look at what that looks like. Alright, so here's our access right here. I'm going to try backing my pickup truck down here after to get all the stamps down. Everything's finished really nice. Landscaping's all done. He just had this rock wall built with the stairs. It was right on the lake. So here's the patio we're doing. This is going to be stone texture stamps. We'll saw cut joints in it afterwards, but we'll get this poured. Again, 1,000 square feet. We've got about 15 yards of concrete. We'll check back with you in a minute. Hey guys, thanks for watching. We're going to have a couple parts to this video because it was pretty long, so make sure you subscribe. Come back and see the finished product. I'll get the stamping part on here, the washing, the sawing, the sealing, so you're going to get to see just how amazing this stamped concrete patio look like. Now, just real quick, I want to mention the forms. You can see the black curved forms we have. Those are poly metaforms. You can check them out online. Those are really nice forms to use if you're doing curves. That system goes up really fast. So poly metaforms, you can Google that and just check them out. They sent us some of those forms. They got rigid ones that are really straight. They're 12 feet long. And then they have these curved ones that are 12 feet long. They got all different sizes. They sent me the 4-inch stuff because we do a lot of 4-inch patios. But we really like those for doing curves. So getting back to the pour, you can see we're getting up underneath the deck. This part was a little bit tricky as far as access. Getting over the whole house, the peak of the roof, you know, and then kind of bending that boom down around, getting that hose dangled underneath that deck was, I mean, it wasn't too bad, but we're also trying to keep the house clean. And if you've ever poured concrete before, if you've done concrete enough, you know that stuff splatters everywhere. I don't care how high you get that poly, you're going to get some on the building. And we did the best not to get any on, or to, if we did see a little speck here or there, to wipe it off. But in all, it went pretty good. Now, we measured this out. If you saw some of those orange marks on the dirt, what I like to do when we have curved stuff like this is I'll break it up into small pieces, small, more measurable pieces to measure the square footage, and then that can help me get the concrete yardage figured up pretty accurately. And then we'll run strings across to get the thicknesses, and that, you know, that helps too. What you can't really tell on the video right here is this piece we're doing right now has actually 2 different slopes to it. It has one slope from the house out to these 3 white columns. That slope's about 1 inch. The homeowner didn't want to get the concrete too thin over, I don't know if you noticed, but there was like a frost wall underneath those columns. And he wanted 4 inches of concrete over that frost wall. So that gave us about 1 inch slope underneath the deck area. And then from the columns out to the form, he wanted to match or be close to the height of that last step, that rock step you see going down. So we wanted that form right in front of the step to basically be right where it is. That's pretty close to the height of the piece of granite or whatever he's got there. So that's another slope right there. That actually slopes a little bit more in that 4 or 5 feet. Maybe a couple inches. So there's a couple different slopes going on. And you'll see in a minute how we screed this. You know, that's going to kind of show you the reason why we screeded it the way we did. Now the mix today, because we're stamping, my normal stamping mix is a 4,000 PSI mix with 3/8 stone, micro fiber mesh in there, air entrainment in there, and water reducer in there. And then we add the color to it. We bring the color right to the concrete plant. I get my color from a pretty local company. It's just powdered color. It comes in a bag, and we throw the bag and everything right into the drum of the concrete truck, and then the bag kind of just disintegrates as he mixes it on the way to the job. So we bring the color right to the concrete plant, and then it can kind of mix up en route to the job. We find that's a little bit better way to mix the color in than trying to add it right on the site. Although we do have jobs where we do have to do that. So that was the first truck. We got 2 trucks here. If I remember right, it was like 15 yards, I think. So there's 7.5 yards. Remember, it takes a whole yard basically just to fill up the concrete truck, the hopper, the boom, and then everything. So you're only really getting 6.5 out of that 7.5. That's why, you know, sometimes if you're pumping, you don't think you go quite halfway. That's why. And then we got the 7.5. He's backing down the driveway right now, getting backed up to the pump, getting mixed up. It was only, as you could see in the driveway in the beginning of the video, there was only room for 1 truck down there at a time. Now this is right on a lake in Maine, at Belgrade, one of the Belgrade lakes. It's very typical for a back patio on these lakes in Maine, or even on the coast, to have very similar access like this, which is really no access, so you got to use a big concrete boom truck like this. Very rocky, very not much flatness to it really. So you're going down the side of a hill, and that's the, you know, a lot of the ones we do are very similar to this. Now we're going to do a stone textured stamp on this. This is what the homeowners picked out. They wanted this really kind of a darker gray concrete. Believe it or not, that is a lot darker than regular concrete. So they wanted a dark gray concrete with a charcoal antiquing agent. We use a teak, what we call a teak wash afterwards, to give it the secondary color. We'll use clear liquid release on this when we stamp. You'll get to see that in the next video. So make sure you come back and watch that. So you got to subscribe for that. And I put out a couple videos a week. I'll try to put that next stamping one out right after this one, in case you're wondering if you want to see us how we stamped all this at once. So what Darren and Harvey are doing right now is they're kind of screeding that first slope. There's about an inch slope right there. So we use a little bit shorter rod, both, you know, the same size as the area that it slopes, and then we'll grab even a smaller rod and go up in there and do this other part that slopes a little bit more. It's not like crazy bad, but it's just the way things ended up working out with the height of the steps. The homeowner hired somebody to come in and build this massive rock wall. You can kind of see it right there, but the thing is massive. And then there's a really nice set of stairs, rock stairs, that go down into his walkway that brings him right to the lake. You can see how nice those curved forms work right there. It gives you a really nice kind of, this was kind of a casual curve, if you want to call it that. Those things will bend a lot sharper than that. And then the way you pin them, it has these clips that go in, these metal clips. You drive your metal stake down through that, and then you kind of tighten it up with that dog tie right there, and it holds itself right to grade. Now we also have iso strip, what we call iso strip. It's like foam up against the house, and that separates the slab from the house, because the slab potentially, I mean, I guess it could move with the frost, and you don't want the slab sticking to the house foundation and then trying to move afterwards. It'll just kind of break it all up on that edge. So this keeps both pours separate. The mix was actually pretty nice, you know. It had a really good, it stuck together really good. There was no separation. You can see even after Darren screeds it, it doesn't tear and rip. And then I'm going over it with the bull float right now, the piece up back. You can kind of see that up off to the left. It's smoothed out pretty nice. What we like to do is when we stamp is we like to get a really good bull float on it. And what I mean by that is really smooth, not a lot of ridges or edges. That's why we use that bull float with the rounded edges. And then, you know, we'll be real fussy going over it with the bull float. And that all starts with the screeding, really, making sure your screed is really good. But that's going to make your whole job or your whole life a lot easier when you go to stamp. Now we'll get on this. We'll get on it with a funny float. You'll see that in the next video, but we'll go over it with a funny float, everything we can reach. And then usually up against the house, it's kind of hard to get it all the way up against the foundation with a funny float. So somebody's got to get on there with skids and kind of wipe that part out by hand. And that's what we had to do here. That's about 18 feet out away from the house. So it's just hard to get enough down or head pressure on the funny float to get up against the house really smooth. That bull floated pretty nice for the most part. I mean, it's fall here and it's fall time. It's October here in Maine, and what happens is you get really cold or really cool mornings. That's why everybody's got sweatshirts on. Could be in the 30s, you know, here when you start pouring, and then by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning or even noontime, you know, the temperatures might be up to 70 degrees. So you get these big swings in temperatures, 40 degrees, and that kind of does funny things with the concrete sometimes. So you just got to be a little careful of that, be prepared for it. Now, another thing that happens in Maine the first week of October is, you know, the leaves are all turning. They're all turning different colors, which is really cool. But they also start dropping from the trees quite a bit. And when we were here forming this, it was quite windy, and you can see the leaves on the ground now. That was all from the day before. They were blowing all over the place, kind of falling out of the trees. And that makes it kind of a nightmare for stamping. If they were all falling like that right now, if it was real windy and I'm trying to bull float the concrete, it's just you get leaves bull floated into the surface, and then you're trying to pick them out when you go stamp. We were really lucky today. We had no leaves kind of fall on this thing because there was no wind in the air, which is kind of rare for fall on a lake in Maine, not to have any wind this time of year. So it all worked out pretty good. Yeah, it works good now. Oh yeah, yeah, works really good. I did ask Jim and Harvey to come up here and help. They're in a lot of my other videos. Jim, he's the guy on the left in the green sweatshirt. Harvey's kind of raking the concrete right now. They both work for themselves and they both help each other. Jim does foundations for houses, and then Harvey, he does flat work like this, but he does a lot of carpentry too. But you know, we're all good friends, and if they need help, you know, we'll go help them. And it just seems like we need more help, so we're always asking them to help us. That makes it work out really nice. Now they'll stay here and help stamp too today. So again, that's going to be part 2 of the video, is get the stamping, and then I might even add in the washing, the sawing, and the teak washing in that, and then the sealing. You'll get to see the finished product anyway of what it looked like. It came out looking really nice. You can see I'm bull floating the concrete originally here the way of the slope. You don't necessarily have to bull float it 90 degrees to the way you screed. I mean, some guys just keep harping on that. It just depends how you screed the concrete. But what I did do here is I did end up going both ways, because this second truck had a little bit different feeling than the first truck. As I was bull floating it, it kind of had a little bit of a drier feeling to the surface. It kind of didn't close up as much as I usually like it to, or how it normally does. You can see it right there on the surface. It looks just a little bit rougher. So I'm going over it again, nice and slow, and just trying to get it all closed up, because I know we got to go over this by hand afterwards, and this is just going to make it 100 times easier after we do that. Now I'm going to have a couple other videos pop up here at the end. I would just want to make sure you check both them out too. Let me know what you think of those videos. And if you want to learn about concrete, if you want to learn about how to do this stuff, if you want to learn how to stamp concrete, I got an online course that I'll have a link for in the description below, my stamp course. Plus, You can learn inside the Concrete Underground about all the different types of concrete finishes we do. So if you want to learn about that, I'll see you in there. Make sure you check out these other 2 videos right here though. Alright, so that's all poured. It's 8 a.m. right now. It's going to be in the shade all day pretty much. It's going to only be 60 today. We probably got an hour. We'll check back with you when it's time to check it, and I'll give you a little bit better update what I think it's going to be and when we start stamping, but probably about an hour.